We are looking at another throwback figure today. This is the Sci-Fi Revoltech Spider-Man 3 Spider-Man. As you can see, if we open up the packaging here, you can see a couple of different images from the film, both red and black suit. I think that they were going to do a black suit Spider-Man, but it got canceled. As you can see over here, we have some Sci-Fi Revoltech and a beautiful window to show the figure. Unfortunately, my what's it called, Velcro came off, so my closure doesn't, or my flap doesn't close properly. You can see some information there to show you how the Revoltech joints work in a different language, and then some more pictures of the figure back here, some information down at the bottom, and then some more branding up top, and then a picture of the figure right at the front. So let's go ahead and move that out of the way. Taking a look at the figure, now this is a guy that I picked up quite a while ago, and I'm pretty sure that I have not done a review on him. If I have, I guess there's going to be another review on him, a re-review. I don't know. I have a few different things that I wanted to try out in this video, but unfortunately I can't find one of the accessories that was made a few years ago. I actually did pick up a bootleg of this figure quite a few years ago. It was around the time that Doc Ock was announced, or at least first rumored to be in Spider-Man No Way Home, so like late 2020. And I got it from somebody on Instagram, and it came with this custom sculpt. And he scaled the figure up with 3D parts to make the thighs a little bit longer and stuff. I can't remember exactly what his Instagram name is off the top of my head, but I will throw it up. I don't have the figure right now because it broke on me, unfortunately. But it also came with a scaled down Spider-Man 3 Hot Toys Peter Parker head, but that's the one I wanted to show you guys, but I can't find it. But just popping this on, this is the official figure. It is not a bootleg. But putting that head on there, it is a little bit bigger, but I think that looks decent. Should probably be able to come down a little bit more. I've done some heavy dremeling on the inside of this. This isn't exactly what it looked like before, but the paintwork that he did on here doesn't actually match the official figure. It is more so accurate to the bootleg, so you guys can see that there. I just wanted to show you guys that. Here are some of the accessories that are from the bootleg, and you can see that they have more of a grayish webbing as opposed to the simpler, the lighter silver webbing. So, speaking of the accessories, let's go ahead and take a look at those. We have a pair of fisted hands here, and I just stole his wrist peg. The wrist pegs are just scaled down Revoltech joints. I don't have all of his accessories here. I have he comes with one of these short webs and then one longer web, and I think he comes with like a spool web too. I don't know. I will throw pictures up of all of the accessories. I don't know where they're all at right now. I have like a little container, like a tool bit container that has a whole bunch of my Spider-Man accessories in it, and all of his aren't in there for whatever reason. You get a pair of wall-crawling hands. This is not the other one. Bit of wall-crawling hands. Some thwipping hands. They're a little bit on the pudgy side. See those right there? They're not painted super well. Then you get a pair of gripping hands right here. Then there's another tighter gripping web. But this just might be a bootleg. I think that might be a bootleg. But yeah, gripping webs. And then you get a bunch of these to port your figure into, because you get this bad boy. This little display piece right here, and you can pop these wherever to help him kind of grab onto or to put his feet into. Unfortunately, his feet don't really go into it very well. So I kind of just use it as like a resting position. And if you're, finagle with it long enough, you can get it to rest on there, and you get a little base down here. You also get a little orange container where you can put the accessories in. This is the bootleg one. They feel pretty comparable. It doesn't feel really cheap or anything like that. It is a little cheaper looking with the paint work and whatnot. but this one's not painted really well to begin with. There's like a weird gradation, and I guess this is supposed to resemble like it being like shadows falling, like lights coming from, no, I don't know. It's a little weird looking, but it's cool. And I have 2 of them, so I like that. But as far as the figure goes, it's not on there all the way. There we go. Yeah, if you put the neck on there all the way, then his neck is too short. And if you pull it up, then it's a little loose. So as you can see, he's kind of all over the place, but for the longest time, this was the best looking Tobey Maguire figure. At least one that used like factory, or not factory, but one that used like computer sculpting, so all of the brick pattern on there and the webbing were all like pretty symmetrical. Unfortunately, you do run into a pretty poor poor painting job when it comes to the head. So that's why it's sometimes hard to tell with this figure whether it's a bootleg or not, because even the regular figure doesn't look like it's painted very well, at least when it comes to the head. And I think this head's a little bit small. And I think this custom head tries to overcorrect a little too much. It might be a little bit big. It might not be, I don't know. It doesn't look too bad. But this sort of sculpt right here is more so based off of what he looks like in like PS4 or the PS5 Spider-Man game, whichever you want to call it. He's got this kind of rounder head and these, it's a less accurate Raimi looking face. It just kind of looks like a generic Raimi Spider-Man as opposed to being accurate to what the face shell looks like in the movie and how the eyes are oriented and stuff like that. I think with a little bit of repainting, though, it would look pretty cool. Getting that back on there. The red's a pretty bright red. You know, I grabbed a few figures here to kind of compare this with, and I didn't grab any of my Tobeys, oddly enough, so I might have to go ahead and grab those. But you can see it's pretty wide at the shoulders, and you got pretty narrow waist. They sculpted the belt pretty low. I am somebody who likes a relatively high belt because it is supposed to be a belt, but Tobey's belt does ride a little bit low, but it's not this low, obviously. His thighs are pretty compact, and then, again, his knees kind of buckle out in this weird way. This figure looks its best once it's posed, but you can see when you get down here, the printing on this leg is really clean, and then this one's a mess. So it's not very consistent at all. And you get these weird looking feet, but he does have kind of the boxiness that he's supposed to have. And you may have already noticed he has the Spider-Man 1 logo on there, even though this is from Spider-Man 3. But it's also too big. It's the size that the Spider-Man 2 and 3 logo should be. And then you move on to the back, and it does have the Spider-Man 2 and 3 logo. At least it's close enough. There are some variations. This figure does do something pretty accurate, though. The boots don't go straight across. They kind of dip down, and they peak on the sides, and they dip in the front and in the back, which is accurate. Accurate enough, anyway. It's not cut straight across like you'll see with, like, Toy Biz figures. Even though when they did more of their sculpted statue figures, they did do the belts accurately. Or the boots accurately. The belt peaks up at the sides and then comes back down to a point in the back, which is accurate to his suit. It's just, again, it's literally on his ass, so that's a little bit weird. As far as the articulation goes, you have this complicated Revoltech joint here, so it's almost like having a ball joint at the base and then a double ball peg at the top, but you're going to get more articulation in some regards and less in others. Like, you're not going to get any leaning, but you can, like, turn it to get all kinds of leaning, but you got to, like, mess around with it. But looking up, you can get him to look all the way up. Like, you don't need any more than that. You can get him to look all the way down. You don't need any more than that. You can get a rotation at both ends, obviously. So if you want to bring the sculpt of the neck with it, you can, or you can just rotate it at the head. And you do get a decent amount of rocking just on its own. It doesn't really feel like you have to like lean it, but you do. It's pretty smooth feeling. So I do like that. It's just it's a little bit gappy, and it's short. So like where you'd want it to sit is you'd want this to sit all the way down below that. And then you want this to sit a little bit higher. But it just doesn't sit where you want it to. So it's a little bit of a pain. You get a Revoltech joint here, so with that you're able to lift the arms up this far. Bit of a Y. Full rotation. You do get a slight rotation up there because there is no bicep swivel. And you can push that in to make it a little less gappy if you want. I might have had his shoulders pulled out a little bit too much when we started. You get a single jointed elbow that gets you a little bit better than 90, but you can get your rotation right there, and it is a split cut or a two molded joint. You know, get the red and the blue, whatever you want to call it. You get a ball joint for the wrist, so that gets really any sort of configuration that you want. With the waist and the diaphragm combined, you can get him to move back this far, which is really nice, and then move forward this far. And then of course you get rotations at both, and you can get some leaning, and if you rotate it all the way you can get some really nice leaning. So yep. And then with the legs you can get them to move back. No, they're not the best. I don't know, it seems like I can't move this one out any further. They're not the best, but they are serviceable. You can get the leg to move up a decent amount, and you can get the leg to move back a decent amount. Almost a full split. You get a rotation at the thigh. Single joint for the knee, but it gets in pretty far. Just a little ugly looking. Ball joint for the ankles. You can get it to move down that far, up that far. And obviously you get a rotation and an ankle pivot. And then a toe articulation. So if you really, really try, you can get this guy in a decent crouch, but you're going to have to do most of the work with the chest or the torso. The legs don't quite bend in at the knees far enough, and they don't come up at the hips far enough. So you're going to have to be creative with how you go. You'd be better off having him kind of crawling up a wall as opposed to like crouching or perching. Taking this back a little bit. Now, if you were going to try to pair this up with some other figures, what are the figures that I would recommend? There's a couple, actually. As far as like an Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, the one that I would recommend pairing with this one, because he is considerably shorter, and we will get into that. The one that I would recommend pairing with this figure is the Figma. I love this guy. He's a great looking figure. Let's move this out just a little bit more. There we go. The Figma is a beautiful figure, and they both have some very weird things going on, but there is some nice passion in there, and I do like it. This guy's got a lot of nice sculpt work, where there is sculpt work other than the head. The head's a little bit weird, and this guy has some beautiful paint work, and I think these two do complement each other well. They're from the front, they're both based off of their Spider-Man 1, or their first film appearances. Obviously, this is just a little bit inaccurate, but by and large, they look really nice together. If you don't have this figure, because these are both kind of hard to get in some regards, here he is compared to the CT Toys Amazing Spider-Man 1 figure. And from what I understand, this figure is scaled down a little bit. They're still... I would say these guys are pretty comparable. I don't think that's bad at all. In terms of a Tom Holland... Oh, his head's gone. In terms of a Tom Holland figure, here he is compared to the SH Figuarts Homecoming Spider-Man, and as you can see, I have him in the Hey Everyone pose. Moving him out of this. I think this figure, for the record, I think this figure represents a Civil War Spider-Man better than he does a a Homecoming Spider-Man. There's some differences in the suit, and I think this figure just looks a little bit more accurate to the CGI Spider-Man in Civil War as opposed to Homecoming. But seeing them two right there, you can see his head's not down all the way. I don't know why. I did have some tack in here at one point, so I don't know if there's some tack inside of there that has to come out. So obviously his head's making him just a little bit taller. But like looking at their shoulders, Tom's a little bit taller, but you can pose these up next to each other. And since this figure's a little less refined, he's not as good as some of the other SH Figuarts Spider-Mans in terms of looks. I think that these guys could pair nicely together, and he wouldn't outshine this figure. In terms of some official figures, here he is compared to some official. Well, I guess I only showed one bootleg. I don't know. Here he is compared to the SH Figuarts Toby. As you can see, there's some considerable size difference there. So he is a lot shorter than he should be, and SH Figuarts is already a little bit shorter. But luckily, this Toby figure is scaled pretty appropriately. He's actually a little bit shorter than the Mafex. So here he is compared to the Mafex. You can see that right there. So since he's a little bit shorter than SH Figuarts and stuff, as you can see, with Marvel Legends, it just wouldn't scale right. So that's why I try to show you guys some figures that would scale together well. These are just not good. Here he is compared to the SH Figuarts Tony Stark, and even then, he's a little too small. So I'm sure at face value, this figure looked like maybe a good pickup at first, but then once you start to see him with other people, it starts to become a little less likely. But I mean, at this point, this figure is probably a little bit harder to get anyway. I picked this guy up after I had my SH Figuarts and before I had the Mafex, and I could only find one on eBay that looked trustworthy and not very easy to get a hold of. And it's also very hard to tell if this figure is an official figure or not. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. I don't want to do too much longer. I'm trying to have these videos be a little bit shorter, but since I had the accessories and stuff, this one is a little bit longer. But this is a part of our throwback reviews, so these videos will come out once a week. So hopefully I can build up a catalog of videos, or at least like build up a bunch of scheduled videos, and they will go out when they're supposed to. And hopefully we can have some frequent content. The problem is that a lot of the stuff that does really well on my channel, like the customs or the mask related stuff, those things are all based around my ability to get something done. So it's hard to stay consistent with those things in mind. So at least for figure reviews, I can try to get some up and hopefully have those helping my channel be frequent or consistent whilst I'm working on the custom stuff. So yeah, with that being said, I definitely recommend this guy for the most part. He's not perfect, and he's definitely not for everybody, but if you're a Raimi fan especially, he's got some charm to him, and I think he can look good with a specific group of Spider-Man figures. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I'm going to go ahead and shut up and get out of here, and until next time, true believers.